Welcome to the premiere episode of the Crypto.news podcast. I am your host, Tony Noto, and with me is...
Dorian Batitska. Hello, Tony.
How are you, Dorian?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Are
How
you
are
not
you?
thrilled to be starting and launching a new podcast for Crypto.news?
The Wild West of crypto has never needed more analysis than today, Tony.
And of course, the world needs another podcast. I mean, we don't have enough, clearly.
Yeah, we've got a few too many, but I think we can spice up the discourse a little bit.
I think so. I mean, we have a bunch of interesting news items lined up to give our listeners the biggest stories of the week. And then we're going to go into a fascinating Q&A on prediction markets. And our guest was wonderful, David Chee
from Manifolds Markets.
So stick
a
around.
Decentralized prediction market that is making waves in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, along with some of the others, I guess, Polymarket and Kalashi. But that's in part two. Stay tuned.
Part two. Stay tuned. And let's kick it off with the news.
We've got a crazy week ahead of us. We've got the election on Tuesday. We've got Donald Trump, Orange Man, Cheeto Hitler, just, that token. What's going on with that? What's going on with World Liberty Financial, Tony? We've heard a few things.
Well, it's not doing well, Dorian. Surprise, surprise. According to a recent regulatory filing, World Liberty Financial had originally sought $300 million. And guess how much they plan to raise now?
Oh, geez. I think they overshot by about 90%.
They indeed they did. 90%. So $30 million from investors. That's the goal now. And they will terminate sales after they hit that goal. They relied on Trump world, I should say, relied on the crypto community to come through for it in this election cycle. I don't know if this is a sign that perhaps maybe they didn't.
I mean, it's a blockchain play. Let's see what happens. Elections Tuesday. I guess Trump is seen by the crypto community as more of a better outcome for the community, or so crypto Twitter seems to think. I think both candidates have recently come out as pro crypto in some way. Whether that will come to fruition after the elections and in January, I guess that's for anyone to see. I think the only thing that any one of the candidates could ostensibly do to really affect the price of Bitcoin would be to implement the Bitcoin strategic reserve at the federal bank level. And I think that would be the only thing, but that would be done from the chairman of the SEC, right? So whoever is taking over from Gensler will have I suppose that on his or her desk. So let's see after Tuesday. In other news, CZ is out of jail. Oh my God. Have you seen the interview that he gave in Dubai a couple days ago?
I saw clips. Why don't you brief me on it?
I mean, it was pretty good. He sat down at the Binance blockchain conference in Dubai. He's back home, where he lives and works. He explained a lot about how it was in prison. He gave a funny couple anecdotes about some of the guards asking for which coins to invest in. He talked about making some friends in jail and some people who he would help advocate for now that he's out to also get free. And he talked about a lot of his future plans, which revolve around education and blockchain, I guess propaganda and helping a lot of other people get on board with blockchain. So he seems kind of, in a good place. He's sitting on a few billion. So I'm sure he's going to be investing in a few startups and helping mentor some new, blockchain companies, AI plays. Who knows what CZ's going to do? He's a really smart guy. I let's hope he doesn't run afoul of the law again. And, he's not able to take back over from Binance. So he has to stay pretty far from operations there. And, Binance is in a very strange place now as well. So yeah, let's see.
So just one question on that. Do you think Binance is better off without him? I mean, they were under scrutiny because of him.
I think that where Binance is at now is, they're looking towards establishing dialogue with different regulators around the world. And I think that happened under CZ as well. But CZ was a barrier to really finalizing any deals that could have happened with the SEC in the US. And I think what's going on now with Binance is they're going to continue being one of the dominant exchanges in the game. They're going to continue what they're going to do, but let's see what happens, because we have a lot of other exchanges that are coming up, decentralized exchanges, things of that nature. So the industry is changing, but I think CZ will ultimately be a thought leader and continue to provide insight to the industry and other potential players and other investors, other startups. I'm excited to see what CZ does.
Yeah.
I like them, dude.
All right, all right. You're a
Yeah, I
fan.
like
You're a
CZ.
fan.
I'm a CZ fan. Are you a CZ fan?
Not really, because he was under investigation for circumventing
Money laundering, anti-money
money
laundering,
laundering
KYC.
and
Yeah.
um, uh, the sanctions against Russia.
I mean, he's a first mover, though, and there has been a lot said that he was helping launder Russian money and like even North Korean
Yeah,
funds.
there is a lot said.
There has been a lot, but like whether that, like, the thing is, whether that happens and he knows about it, or whether that's just happening, like, and he's just kind of like not able to understand that it's happening while he's running the exchanges and everything. I don't think he was like malicious in his intent when it came to all of the things. I mean, there's a willful blindness, you could say, that was probably at play.
Yeah.
You are the CEO, you founded the exchange, you are ultimately culpable for what happens on it. But I don't think he had malintentions. Look where old SBF is, right? Look at someone like that.
That's right.
I
That's
don't think you'd
true.
want to be in SBF shoes at the
No,
moment.
you definitely don't.
Speaking
Well,
though of the SEC
yeah.
and regulation, Immutable was given a Wells notice last week. One of the bigger stories I saw on Twitter. They wrote within hours of receiving it. I quote, "Sadly, stories like this are becoming less surprising each time. We've seen an increasing number of companies like Coinbase, Consensus, Uniswap, OpenSea, Crypto.com face SEC escalations, many in the last 2 months. They say that Immutable is well capitalized with a large war chest to build for the future of gaming. And if needed, we will stand up and fight to defend digital ownership for gamers."
Yeah, and
The SEC is the...
obviously,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of overregulation is going to put a dent in that war chest, possibly deplete it. And these startups, these companies like Immutable, they need that war chest to grow, and they do not want to spend it on legal fees and court cases. So it's tough for them.
Well, they're an in-game item digital ownership NFT play. And we can plug here our guest next week, Brian Fry, a
There you
lawyer
go.
from the University of Kentucky, self-described Dogecoin professor of grift, or something of other on Twitter. And he's really interesting guy, because he has sued the SEC, and he's currently also in a case with the SEC involving NFTs as well. So I think when it comes to like legislation by enforcement and different tactics of operating the SEC, a lot's going to change come January as well. I mean, Gensler's getting out. Like, everybody hates this guy, right? Like, Gensler is... there's a visceral hatred towards him in crypto that is very difficult to quantify to perhaps outsiders. But I think a lot of people who I follow on Twitter absolutely despise the guy and what he's attempted to do with the industry. So that's a story to keep an eye on. But good luck to Immutable in their upcoming expensive case.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to bring up,
What's that?
was this truth terminal that has been popping off on X. A16Z pumped, I guess, 50 grand into this truth terminal. It seems to be the new sort of meta, that this ability to use large language models to train a kind of semi-sentient thinking thing into a bot, and which became later a meme coin, and is now kind of an algorithmic bot that is now looking for patterns in crypto and meme coins. I mean, what an amazing story? Have you been following this truth terminal?
Well, I know the story because I've seen a little movie called 2001: A Space Odyssey where everything you just described is basically hell. Only this time it's on the blockchain and it's a currency. So, currency related, I should say. So I don't know. I mean, I'm a little skeptical of. I mean, I'm a writer and an illustrator, and I've worked on films, and I'm very worried about AI going too far. I am one of those people, but I'd be lying if I said I haven't used it and tested it out, especially Chat GPT, and so I don't know where I stand on it. I think that there definitely needs to be some sort of regulation on it. I'm a little worried that it really is going to put people out of work.
I mean, Truth
And
Terminal is basically a sentient goatsy bot, right? It's like kind of like
right,
develop. It's such a wild creature because it's like it has gone into the realms of like Nick Land and accelerationism and this kind of thinking around like the most degen aspects of like some of these like really dark fringe web memes and theories in order to develop a meta on the internet that is referencing this kind of like cryptic canon of like kind of like goatsy knowledge and thought, and it's such a crazy project. I'm gonna follow it. As far as the meme coin that was built on top of it, I'm pretty sure that was built by like another party, like someone who kind of like saw what was happening with the truth terminal and decided to like, let's turn this into a meme coin on pump.fun and like see
what
what
could go
happens.
wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a crazy meta, the meme coin narrative. This cycle, I suppose. It seems to be the one cycle that is like dominating. You know, like there's a capital flight to meme coins that is just remarkable to see. And there was even a piece in the Financial Times, I think today or yesterday, talking about meme coins in the Financial Times. Never thought I would see, but yeah. Um, I guess that's it for the news this week. Thank you for joining us on our inaugural episode 0, Genesis episode of the Crypto News Show.
Crypto.news show.
Crypto.news Show. Don't forget the dot, Crypto.news Show.
We can do a rare thing, plug the actual website that has the podcast while at the same time telling people the name of the podcast, which is kind of
Absolutely.
cool.
Absolutely. Okay, Anthony, thank you very much. And stay tuned for part 2 with David Chee from Manifold Markets.
Start off.
David
David Chee, welcome to the Crypto.news Show. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you thank you for being here. The first Crypto.news podcast. This is a very interesting time. Of course, we have the election next week. This is being recorded before the election on Tuesday. But nevertheless, it seems that prediction markets are at the center of what is a very tumultuous election period. David Chee, community manager, if that's right, of Manifold Markets, founded in 2021 by brothers James and Stephen Gruget, together with Austin Chen. Manifold is exactly what it is. It's a decentralized prediction, reputation-based prediction market. The website has 2 forms of currency, Mana and Sweep Cash. Sweep Cash can be redeemed for real-world money for a 5% fee or cashed out to a charity of the user's choice for no fee. 1 unit of Sweep Cash is equivalent to 1 unit of USD, and markets use a version of the Uniswap automated market maker known as ManySwap. David Chee, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here, and let's get right into it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Happy
no
to be
problem.
here.
Let's get right into it. I think given everything that's been going on now with Kalshi and Polymarket, can you start by maybe just sharing about your personal journey and how you got involved with Manifold Markets and what makes kind of decentralized prediction markets unique for you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, like most of the world, I didn't really know a thing about prediction markets until just a few years ago. So I learned a little bit before probably most people are learning right now, but I used to be a content creator, and Austin, one of the founders you mentioned, was a fan of mine, and he was like, we need someone who's good at building a community. There wasn't really a clear way for prediction markets to go mainstream at that point, so community-driven growth was a big idea. So I got brought on board, got to learn about prediction markets, and it stemmed from there, really.
Hmm. Um, and can you explain a little bit about what exactly decentralized prediction markets are, how they function, and what goes on sort of behind the wheel there? Like how do they function, and what is their primary use case in your estimation?
Yeah, I would love to get a clear answer on that as well. For the unaffiliated, uh, say someone has never even logged on to a prediction market. What is it? How do you describe it?
Yeah, sure. Um, so prediction markets are inherently, they can be either decentralized or less so to different extents. So Polymarket is the big one that's blowing up right now. That's pretty much fully decentralized. It's on the blockchain. The way questions. Essentially, let's go back to what a prediction market is first, and then I can describe the differences between being decentralized or not. A prediction market is you have a contract on any question. So, and the one that's most popular right now is will Trump win the election? Um, and then instead of buying shares in a stock like you would a market, instead you're buying either yes or no shares of Trump winning or losing. Um, and essentially, by with the buying pressure on yes and the buying pressure on no, it will stabilize around a certain price. Because as more people buy, it gets cheaper or more expensive one way. And that price it stabilizes around can then be reflected as a probability. And we can use this to inform ourselves how likely the market believes a given event will occur. Um, and then you get into the decentralized side of things, which is, well, who comes up with the question? How do you decide what the criteria of the question should be? Once the event has happened, who decides if it should resolve to yes, Trump won or no, Trump didn't win? That's a pretty unambiguous question, but sometimes it can be a bit more ambiguous. So Polymark on the blockchain is fully decentralized. Manifold is partially decentralized, that um, Manifold users are the ones uploading and creating the questions, but Manifold kind of oversees it and will step in occasionally and resolve. Our sweepstakes market in particular, we have to, for legal reasons, be the ones responsible for resolving all of those. And then you have Cowshe, which is probably the most centralized, where Cowshe is making, managing, resolving all the markets.
Yeah, and can you discuss a little bit about your thoughts on the recent CFTC ruling with respect to Kalshi? The CFT had a history of opposition towards betting platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket. They faced numerous allegations of market manipulation related to partisan interests. Can you explain a little bit about what your thoughts were on this consent order that was banning them, and how that was then later withdrawn through a no action letter, and what that perhaps means for prediction markets, but also what that means for decentralized prediction markets where there's ostensibly no point of contact for a sort of choke point?
Yeah, it's a really big deal. So for 100 years, prediction markets have been illegal in the US. So we've had Polymarket, but they were sued for like $1 million and had to like make sure they actually started enforcing no US customers. Um, so then Polymarket being only available to international users, it really became just would Cowshe get approval or not? And then Manifold also went our own route to find approval too, but in a different way. But yeah. So what happened with Cowshe was the CTFC has this law that says you're not allowed to trade on any sort of contract relating to war, terrorism, and very broad, vague category called gaming. Um, so the CTFC was like, you can't have markets on the elections. That's not allowed. That falls under gaming. And then Kaoshi's like, wait, how does trading on the elections fall under gaming? This is like serious stuff. People need to be able to hedge real world risk like for example, Elon Musk right now is taking a lot of risk by going all in on Trump, right? So theoretically, he could hedge his risk, by his financial risk at least
But
by
David, just the
yeah, go
idea
on.
of hedging a risk, I mean, that's still gambling in a sense, no?
I mean, yeah, you could from a yeah, I think most people would probably consider it gambling still, but it's specifically the word used that has passed that the CTFC has to adhere to isn't gambling, it's gaming. You can't have contracts on gaming. So whether gambling is equivalent to gaming, sure, you like a lot of users are essentially gambling. They're not really making educated trades. But they're still, it's on a serious topic. You could say that like markets on Tesla stock is gambling, but it's a serious stock that's being traded. So in a similar way, serious events, Kaushi would argue that well, maybe you could consider them gambling, that they're not gaming is the key distinction.
That's so interesting because is what's serious and what isn't. A lot of people would deem politics not serious, but at the same time, those people might consider a blackjack tournament in Las Vegas very serious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would love to know just the difference in the currency that's used in each of these platforms. Yours is different than Polymarket. Why don't you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so Polymarket uses crypto. Manifold, we originally for a few weeks were planning to be on crypto too, but then we're like, you know what, let's take a different approach. Kalshi is trying to get regulation, Polymarket's trying to do cryptocurrency. Why don't we just try and make the most accessible product available on the market? Prediction markets are already so niche. We need to try and make it easier for people to get involved. So we started off with just pure play money called Mana, and this allowed us to sort of bypass any regulatory hurdles. But Mana has some incentives. Play money is fun for nerds who sort of care about it, but for your average person, you first have to really convince people to sort of care about play money, which worked really well for a small group of people, but wasn't really a viable business model we found long term. So we've recently introduced a new currency called Sweep Cash, which is, as you mentioned, the one you can withdraw. Once you win it, you can withdraw it to real USD. But yeah, this isn't on the crypto. This is just our own sort of game token we call Sweep Cash that you can then redeem to USD once you win.
And how about volumes? How is growth for you guys? How much volume are you guys seeing on the site for some of the different markets, and how has growth been?
Yeah, so we just passed 100,000 volume in Sweep Cash volume a few days ago. So we're still quite a bit behind Polymarket's 2 billion or whatever it is. And Kaushi I think, is also at like 200, 300 million, something like that now. So I think we're Manifold, unfortunately, we've kind of been known as the play money platform. So often I'll go on Twitter X and I'll see lots of people, like someone will comment like one of our sweepstakes markets, which can be withdrawn to cash, and then everyone will be like, oh, Manifold is just the play money site. So we're still trying to sort of break this almost too strong branding we had, which is Manifold's really cool, but it's only play money. So we need to be like, okay, but now we actually have sweepstakes. And I think we're also just a pretty small team, so we have some catching up to do with regards to Kaushi and Polymarket's success. Yeah.
Do you ever worry? Well, does your team ever worry about a whale like better, like the one that was flooding Polymarket with $30 million, inspired by a Trump victory?
Worried in what sense? Worried it will affect our accuracy badly? Worried
Or that
it
somebody
could...
would come in, because Polymarket found itself under a lot of scrutiny
Right.
in this recent situation. And it's not an accurate portrayal of what voters feel. Does something like does Manifold worry that somebody can come in with a lot of cash and deep pockets and sort of wield a similar influence?
I don't think we're too worried. It's one of those things that it's hard to actually say the effects the whale is having. It could be that the price was already trending that way anyways, and the whale just accelerated. Because really, if the market is efficient, which we believe they are, they should be corrected. Now, what we've seen with poly market, however, is the whales bets are so large and kind of they are timed with things that you would lead you to believe that Trump's odds are improving slightly, and we did see this sort of lagging a little bit behind in the polls that Trump's odds were increasing. But the thing is in the models on the polls, they only moved up marginally, whereas poly markets seem to have overshot quite a lot. So it's hard to say how much of that is from the whale versus how much of it. But it's quite a sustained growth. You would have thought it's corrected faster. So it might be that people who think it should be corrected are like, oh, well, these whales are so stupid. They keep belling at such a high price. I can just be patient, and rather than correcting to what I believe I should, I'll just like keep placing limit orders at like sort of like a greedy value, which allows it to stay high for longer. But I mean, there have been sort of academic studies in admittedly a closed environment and not necessarily are going to map well to real life, but that shows sort of intentional manipulation and dumb money can lead to better accuracy long term, because you know lots of savvy traders will see this dumb money and it actually incentivizes more trading overall and incentivizes more trading from different groups of people who are more likely to disagree. But we're just gonna have to wait and see, really. I think it's a lot of people are claiming like it's manipulation. A lot of people are claiming the price is overbought. I personally believe poly market has overreacted a little bit, and the sustained levels we've seen of Trump's odds on poly market is likely because people are sort of just being greedy with their limit orders when they otherwise could bet it down closer to 50-50.
Speaking of like the efficient market hypothesis, even Bloomberg, to my knowledge, has now integrated some of the poly market odds into the terminal. Do you see a future where sort of prediction markets have a better communication, let's say, portal between traditional polls in order to gain like different alpha for like say exotic events and geopolitical events? Like, is there a space for prediction markets to better integrate with traditional polling?
Well, the first thing that immediately comes to mind is a lot of things like you say, like geopolitical events, polling. Like those aren't actually things that coexist. We have polling for politics, but we don't have, most events happening. We don't really have polling for. So that's prediction market's big advantage. It's a new quantitative forecasting method for things. Previously, like I'm sure the US government has some sort of like internal forecasting tools for these things, but the public hasn't. With regards to integrating to things that we do have lots of public polling for, like presidential elections, I think even if the integration isn't so visible on a surface level, all these people now trading large amounts of volume. There are institutions now trading on Cauchy and poly market, market making and so forth. They will on their side, on the back end, sort of be like very heavily integrating the two with their own sort of models. So we'll have to see like how it develops on a front end, like you say, with tools like Bloomberg and stuff for the consumer, but it's certainly already happening behind the scenes.
So quick question, David. Offshore voodoo, is that a fair distinction of poly market? Just in the way that it's, just in the way that like how others in other corners of the globe sort of view this crazy situation. I want to say shit show of an election that we're going through. Is it fair to call it that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like connotation with voodoo is normally sort of a bit negative, mysterious. I think it's fair to say it is somewhat mysterious right now. No one really knows. We have like lots of small scale markets that have been very accurate, both on Polymarket, Manifold, the other prediction market sites. to show we're within a couple percent margin of error. But we've never had anything like this before, where we have so much attention and billions of dollars in volume. So yeah, I mean, it is a bit mysterious. I think you can sort of break it down and say, oh, it's the whales, or oh, it's not, it's very accurate. But yeah, I don't think from a sample size of one, we can't know. So I think it's fair to say it's mysterious. I'm not sure I would attribute quite the same negativeness that comes with voodoo, though. But yeah.
Perhaps you could just give a little clarity, and then I'll kick the ball over to Dorian, my very patient co-host. I think the big thing I wanted to know is what is your view of the usership of your company? I mean, do you have any sort of clue as to what the demographics are, who's from where, what the genders are, and so forth? Financial background?
Yeah, definitely. So Manifold is, because each prediction market between Cauchy, Manifold, and Polymarket took such different routes for marketing, we actually all have very distinct user bases from each other. There's some overlap, like there's some prediction market level overlap, but Manifold is very much more SF tech based users, a lot more interest in our AI markets, for example. We've had open AI employees sort of insider trading on the play money markets and getting in trouble for it. So naturally, with a lot of SF tech people, there's a lot more Democrats. We did a poll a few months ago, and I think it was like 60 to 70% Democrat, whereas you can imagine right now Polymarket is overwhelmingly Republican because of how much attention they've gotten from Elon and other Republican-leaning people. Cauchy is very sort of finance, New York finance people, but with their marketing now, I'm sure they've kind of expanded into the much broader audience. I think mostly male still, but I don't really have a figure off the top of my head. I think it's something like 80-20% male to female, but this is old data before like all the recent marketing, so I'm not sure what it is.
What's the
now.
average bet? What's the size of the average bet?
Good question.
On which platform? On Manifold?
On Manifold, yeah.
Well, I think I'm not sure the average bet size. I know the average amount per user though is about $40 is like the average purchase of Sweep Cash is about $40 per user. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the average bet size is though. This is all very new data for us as well, because before we used Mana, which is a play currency, so it's not really comparable.
Fascinating. One final question. A lot of the controversy that how Polymarket sort of came onto my radar was after these crazy Hezbollah prediction markets that went viral earlier this year in October, and including one viral post where Zach Ryans wrote. He said, "It's an extreme example, but any prediction market about an influenceable event will start to either incentivize action or subsidize the inevitable if sufficiently liquid enough. Of course, if these markets are traded with 100 million plus liquidity, would that change the outcome? Maybe not. But if insider traded, would they not be subsidizing war?" And that prompted Polymarket to then take down the fees on their Hezbollah prediction markets. It prompted Vitalik Buterin, who is an investor in Polymarket, to tweet in support, saying that he supports markets existing. How much do you guys think about like these sort of political markets and their ability to, influence events, especially some of these smaller cap ones where, one of the charts that I had found on your site was involving Benjamin Netanyahu and whether he will, survive. And what do you think? What are your thoughts about sort of this aspect of prediction markets and incentivizing, let's say, adverse political behaviors?
Yeah, this is something we do have to think carefully about. So far, it hasn't been too much of a problem because all prediction markets were just so niche that there wasn't enough liquidity for it ever to be worth it. The the first thing to note, though, is that there's already a lot of markets and a lot of financial gain to be had from trying to manipulate certain world events. For example, if something tragic was to happen to Donald Trump tomorrow, his there's Donald Trump has a media company which has like public stocks that can be traded. So already, like, just in the regular market, there's plenty of incentive for people to do all sorts of illegal things. Um, so I think prediction markets isn't unique in this regard, that there is financial incentive for illegal behavior, but in of themselves, I am skeptical that they directly will sort of lead to someone like doing something so illegal that they wouldn't have done for other reasons.
Mm.
It's so this is like the much bigger picture things. There's so many world markets so heavily tied to geopolitical events that it's just not that are way more liquid, that it's not too big a concern. I would say the ones I'm personally more thoughtful about are the smaller ones. So going back to my gaming background, there used to be this platform long ago, a few years ago now, on crypto, that where it allowed you to bet on whether streamers would win their games or not. And what would happen is you would have these people just stream snipe them, queue into their games, get on their team, and just like run it down and just like intentionally lose the game. So the streamer like loses their game, and then they are also getting their friends or themselves betting the same time on this like very shady new crypto betting on gamers website. So
It's sort of the problem that sports are having now, right? Like, what if they purposely throw a game to rig maybe DraftKings or FanDuel?
Yeah, it happened to Michael Porter Jr. He got kicked out of the NBA for betting on his own games, and
That's right.
it was actually detected through an AI, I think, that DraftKings had. So they had like some AI or machine learning thing that was able to detect like statistical anomalies and like huge spikes, right? And they're like, then they have a human look at it. It's like, what's going on here? And it triggered a whole series of sort of internal investigations. I'm wondering, how do you guys use like AI and machine learning to like develop like internal methods of studying like, betting behavior on Manifold?
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak too much to like, all the measures we have in place to like try and detect fraud. That's like, we're generally a very transparent company, but that's one you have to be a little bit more careful about. I will say right now though, where our numbers are sort of low enough that we don't really need to use AI or anything like that. Before it was only play money, and over the recent weeks, we're starting to gain some velocity now, but yeah, it just hasn't been too big of a priority for us so far. So we're not using we don't have some like secret, like super advanced like AI LLM software going on right now. It's quite obvious for us. We can like just like occasionally glance at like various trading histories, and people are a lot worse than you would think at hiding their actions. Even when we were play money, people are trying to do all sorts of crazy things, and it'd be pretty easy to catch them. Yeah.
Fascinating. Anthony, any more questions?
I would love to know, because you're overseas, and your view of, I guess, America right now is probably very different than ours, even though Dorian is overseas as well. So I guess I'm asking this question from the perspective of being here in this, heading into this, what's going to be a very crazy week. And people are going to be listening to this episode after the fact. What is your hope when you look at America right now? What do you sort of worry about, or do you worry about anything? Or is being in this industry sort of just gamified politics and other things other prediction markets as well?
Yeah, I mean, not only am I not American, I really didn't care about politics at all until relatively recently. But as I've learned about it, it's so interesting. But I think the biggest one as a non-American is hoping just for more, I think, stability. It's a bit chaotic, and with America having such influence over various parts of the world, I think other countries almost just want to minimize that sort of chaotic nature that comes with American politics lately, because it's then hard to predict how it's going to affect your own non-American lives. I'm kind of excited for it to be over, to be honest. Part of me does wonder with like how much attention is on the US election, if that detracts from some of the other more serious geopolitical events happening right now. You know, tension in Asia is increasing, but I would guess the average American doesn't really realize how these tensions are building, and I would suspect if it wasn't mid-political cycle and things were relatively boring in like American politics otherwise, you know, news, they're trying to find stories, and they would actually like give more attention to these other things. But right now it's like no attention really being given to other areas. It's only about the elections, right? So
Great.
Indeed it is, yeah.
On that note, David Chee, Manifold Markets Community Manager, thank you for taking the time to speak to Anthony and I on the first, but not the last, Crypto.news podcast. Prediction markets, decentralization, crypto, geopolitics, super interesting topics. Thank you very much, David.
yeah, thank you for having me.
All
Take
right.
care, David.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to do a short debrief, or is